The Great Reset to bring about stakeholder capitalism. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee and let's have a look at this blog post from the World Economic Forum discussing what is stakeholder capitalism. Because it's all going to sound nice and friendly and good, you know, caring more about more people, not just focusing on profits. Apparently profits are bad. You know, I think that's really a holdover from all the 80s movies, where you got a bunch of leftists in Hollywood putting the constant stream of the villain being the businessman or the profit motive. Profits lead to good things, everyone. You want to make profits. If you don't make profits, you're a failure in business. It's just that simple. Sorry to let you know that, but you are. So let's have a look at this blog post, because my concern is we'll see more and more of a push for this of stakeholder capitalism, and it feels like it's just an evolution of the social justice that has permeated business. You've got corporations, major corporations, getting together and discriminating based on ideological purposes. And this is one video I did now 2 years ago, back in July 2018, called CEOs Against Men. It hasn't gotten many views. It's discussing male champions for change and all these CEOs coming together to actively discriminate against men to improve their gender quotas in their employers. See, here's the problem. When they talk about stakeholders, when they talk about special interest groups, it means we're moving away from a merit-based society. It means we're addressing or kowtowing to the largest and most vocal special interest group. It's just a continuation of crony capitalism in some ways. You're going to have the stakeholders that can have the best sway, that can lobby the best, that can manipulate the best, that can tweet the most, that can get their interests put forward. And before we even go to this, I want to draw your attention to this research paper here. This one here. Going Blind to See More Clearly. Unconscious Bias in the Australian Public Service Shortlisting Process. Now this is from, what is it, the Behavioral Economics, Behavioral Economics of Australia, from the Prime Minister's office. And I've got the link there for you. Team of Australia, that's it. It's our behavioral economics team. Now, so these were the agencies that were involved. The Department of Public Service Commission, Department of Agriculture and Water, the ATO, the Attorney General's Office, the Department of Defense, Foreign Affairs, Trade, yada, yada, yada. All of these government organizations, all of them supported by taxpayer money farmed from our citizens. All of them, you would expect, would do their utmost to handle that money they've taken off people with the best ability that they have. You would hope that those civil servants would appreciate that every dollar they spend is a dollar that could be going to fund little Johnny's new education, or a mortgage payment, or keep someone in a house, because that's what it is. Remember, we're paying the tax man, we're paying for this stuff before you get a house over your head, before you even feed your own family. So, this study assessed whether women and minorities are discriminated against in the early stages of the recruitment process for senior positions in the Australian public service. It also tested the impact of implementing a blind or de-identified approach to reviewing candidates, okay? So the assumption they want to test, are these minority groups or women being discriminated against at these senior levels at the public service? Because we don't have full equality, everyone. That's what we need. We need full equality. Your numbers need to be 50% or to match the population, because people don't have independent choice or desires, or don't want to do a high level and stressed job in the public service. You know, maybe they want to do another thing with their life. Oh, no. Sorry. That's not how it works, comrade. So over 2,100 public servants from 15 agencies participated in the trial. They completed an exercise in which they shortlisted applicants for a hypothetical senior role in their agency. Participants were randomly assigned to receive application material for candidates in standard form or in de-identified form, with information about candidate gender, race, and ethnicity removed. So they're removing the identifying material, which, because obviously the argument is, particularly from the social justice left, that these stakeholders are being discriminated against actively because we've got a discriminatory system. This is such a boomer bloody idea, and I've encountered it before at university. And I remember arguing with these lecturers that set up like an award for women in construction. I'm going, you don't need that nowadays. No one gives a crap about that, your gender. It's if you work hard. But see, I'm too young to appreciate that. This is all, it's outdated thinking here from our leaders. But we'll see. Okay, so according to these, there's all this active discrimination. It's systematic, apparently. So overall, the results indicated the need for caution when moving towards blind recruitment in the APS, as de-identification may frustrate efforts at promoting diversity. Okay, I'll just read that again. Overall, the results indicated the need for caution when moving towards blind recruitment because it will frustrate efforts to promote diversity. Because you know what happened? If they de-identified the candidates, they just didn't have any of this race, gender, or ethnicity there to influence their decision. They found that these 2,100 public servants in 15 agencies had an unconscious bias towards people of, or maybe even a conscious one, towards people of a particular gender, race, or ethnicity. They were promoting women or minorities above more, white men. But when they removed those de-identifying features, all of a sudden it didn't work. The results showed that overall de-identifying applicants at the shortlist stage does not appear to assist in promoting diversity within the APS hiring. Overall, APS officers discriminated in favor of female and minority candidates. Okay? They're discriminating in favor of them. By de-identifying it, you're removing that discrimination. Now, under our discrimination laws, you are able to positively discriminate against people here in Australia if they're considered in a disadvantaged group. So it's all BS. We're not a equal or egalitarian country. We were definitely a class country here. And this is the danger, everyone. It's this social justice rubbish permeating through human resources in these organizations. And we're seeing it here with the male champions for change and just the arrogance in this video, particularly of the ANZ CEO saying he pretty much knew better than normal plebeians. Now that's why, because I've been talking about this for some time, and a lot of people have as well, how stakeholder capitalism concerns me. Because I can see it just as an evolution of crony capitalism or a merging of crony capitalism with social justice. And that's going to mean, well, there's going to be aspects, it will be systematic racism and discrimination. That's what this is going to evolve into, 100%. Let's have a look here at what Davis are telling us. Stakeholder capitalism is a form of capitalism in which companies seek long-term value creation by taking into account the needs of all their stakeholders and the society at large for the greater good. Klaus Schwab discusses its history and relevance in this excerpt from the book Stakeholder Capitalism, a global economy that works for progress, people, and planet. Now, what I want everyone to look at, I'm going to do this search, if you haven't already, Hans Rosling, his TED Talk. The best stats you've ever seen. Now, when I was at university, in architecture school, we had to do a subject in our penultimate year in which we needed to develop a global ethical system to justify our project. And we were fed a lot of greenwashing, a lot of ideologically based arguments. And I didn't quite... let's just say the disagreeable nature in my personality means I won't take anything at face value given to me from an authority figure, particularly at university, which I'll respect it and I will look for counter arguments or try and pull it apart, which means, I still got a 7 in the subject. And I was brought back to teach it a year later. That's when I discovered a lot of Rosling's talks and a lot of the assumptions that people have about other parts of the world and just, the quality of life for people and just how much better we've gotten thanks to capitalism, thanks to free markets. It blew me away. That was really an eye-opening subject for me at university. I really enjoyed it. I got really frustrated when I was brought back because they really went hard on the sustainability aspect. And I failed to argue that it should have been incorporated into our professional practice. Because one, I could say you could ethically justify any project if you had a moral compass and you analyzed it on a certain variety of axes. Building a shopping center may not be, because the problem is all the students just did inner city green farming on top of bloody buildings. That was it. It just evolved to that. I would argue you could build a shopping center in a regional area where there was low unemployment and low access to utility and cheaper products, because that would have an economic benefit to that area. Can you just picture how that would go over with a bunch of architects? Okay, they all want the hippie green shit. No, it needs to look pretty. It needs to be memorable, and so that frustrated me. And it's actually one of the few times I couldn't come back to that subject. They probably wouldn't have wanted me back anyway because I wasn't just towing the line. I wanted people to think critically. Anyway, I suggest you have a look at this video if you haven't looked at it. Look at Hans Rosling's talks just about statistics. For some people, this will change your perspective on the world. And I think a lot of leftists should look at that who are quite critical and think capitalism is to blame for all of the issues that we have. It's not really. It's improved the lives of more people than ever. Another thing to look at is as well, and we'll look at here, we'll look at Lomborg. Global priorities bigger than climate change as well. This is another talk I suggest you look at, particularly because he discusses the Copenhagen Consensus. Because, well, the issue is people are worried about climate change. It's understandable. I'm not against the argument that we're having an environmental impact on the planet. I'm skeptical about the accuracy of 100-year modeling, just because I've seen modeling in my own professional capacity that's dodgy as all anything. But his argument is, with limited resources, where is the most effective way to deploy it? And I suggest you have a look at this, because this is quite a fascinating video as well. It really puts things in perspective. So there are two bits of homework for you, looking at Rosling's video about the greatest stats you've ever seen and Bjorn Lomborg's global priorities, just to get a bit of a perspective if you haven't been exposed to those. And I'll link to those in the pinned comments down below. But anyway, back to this. So we can join the book club discussion, and I will probably get the book on my Kindle and have a look at it later. So these days, a lot of political and business leaders debate whether stakeholder capitalism would provide us with a better way to organize the economy. The market is the best way. Have we forgotten about the invisible hand? We really have, haven't we? We are in a centrally planned economy to some extent. You've got the central banks all over the world. How about we get rid of those? Go, okay, let's go old school. I know you got a whole lot of people that want Bitcoin to be the reserve currency. Why not? What do we got to lose? My worry is this will just create more, big businesses aren't going to sign up to this stuff out of the goodness of their hearts. They're going to step in and use this because it will allow them to exert more control and diminish competition. Oh, no, sorry, you can't sign up for that business unless you've completed this 17-step stakeholder report. All this stuff. If you've ever worked for a government tender or project, just the amount of garbage they get you to do to jump through hoops that literally adds no value. I still remember once I was out at Ipswich. We just designed a little police station at the train station there, like a little police beat that was being completed for a politician. Here's the funny thing. Completed for a politician to say they met their promise, but wasn't going to be manned for like 6 months. So, a joke. And we were there doing this all in safety inspection. And they were going, there's a slight sharp corner on that edge and yada, yada, yada. And I'm going, yeah, it's a window, okay? come here, follow me. And I took them into an emergency exit that was full of flammable stuff. And I go, this has been like this since I reported it to your people 6 months ago when we started the job, and it still hasn't changed. Oh, no. It's all BS, really. Anyway, back to this. But what exactly is stakeholder capitalism, and where does it originate? In this blog, adapted from the book Stakeholder Capitalism, A Global Economy That Works for Progress, People and Planet, we like to tackle this question and provide the reader with a clear answer. So, the stakeholder concept goes a long way back, more than 50 years. I first wrote about it in 1971 when I was a young business academic. But its roots go even further. In the 50s and 60s, it was quite natural for a company and its CEO to consider not just shareholders, but everyone who has a stake in the success of a firm. This is the core of stakeholder capitalism. It is a form of capitalism in which companies do not only optimize short-term profits for shareholders, but seek long-term value creation by taking into account the needs of all their stakeholders and society at large. This approach was common in the post-war decades in the West, when it became clear that one personal entity could only do well if the whole community and economy functioned. There was a strong linkage between companies and their community. In Germany, for example, where I was born, it led to the representation of employees on the board, a tradition that continues today. And as sourcing, production, and selling took place mostly locally, or at least regionally, there was a connection with suppliers and clients as well. This fostered a strong sense that local companies were embedded in their surroundings, and from that grew a mutual respect between companies and local institutions such as government, schools, and health organizations. It led to a constellation of stakeholders that I visualized in my 1971 book, Modern Company Management in Mechanical Engineering. So you've got shareholders, economy, state and society, lenders, okay. In subsequent years, the stakeholder concept was adopted more prominently in the social democracies of Northern and Western Europe, including Sweden, Denmark, Finland, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany. It led there, among others, effects to a tripartite system of collective labor negotiations, including company management, employees, and government. And it contributed to the welfare state in which companies and employees paid their fair share of taxes to fund public education, healthcare, and social security. This fair share. What is a fair share? Everyone says a fair share, but no one can define it. The problem is the more taxation you create, the more incentives you create for people to avoid taxation. That has unintended consequences. No one's ever going to pay their fair share. Everyone who has a modicum of intelligence is going to do whatever they can to minimize their taxes. Here in Australia, we're seeing that manifest in a property bubble. Negative gearing is a tool that most people use to mitigate their taxes, or a lot of people do. And it's not just rich barons or these tools you see selling online courses on Facebook or YouTube or wherever. Most of them are average people because they want to get out of it. They're paying all this tax and they don't see the worth of it. The system did adapt as decades went by, and it lives on to various degrees in these countries. But see, here's the thing. He's basing it on an outdated logistics process. You don't need to be so close to your suppliers and sources anymore. You know, the European Union is, in many ways, it's not really relevant because you can ship goods all around the world very efficiently, everyone. I mean, yeah, sure, okay, we've got a shipping container shortage right now. But still, you can get product from all over the world. International trade is at a level that we've never seen in all humanity, and it leads to a lot of advantages, and it improves people's quality of life. So, but as a global organizing principle for business, the stakeholder concept competed head-on with the Chicago School economist Milton Friedman's notion of shareholder primacy. It held that the business of business is business, or as he literally wrote, the social responsibility of a company is to make profits, and the stakeholder approach ultimately lost out. Well, yes, there's nothing wrong with that at all. What's the problem with that? There's greater benefit there. Look at Rosling's talks, everyone. The problem is when the government and state intervenes in the market to mitigate the chance of profit and to destroy the chance of competition. When you've got crony capitalism, when governments and businesses use political leverage to stack the deck in their favor. I can see stakeholder capitalism just being a continuation of crony capitalism. I can see it having all the best intentions. But this is the problem. Whenever we intervene in an emergent system, there are outcomes we can't measure, we can't control, we can't anticipate. We think we can, but we always get it wrong. Shareholder capitalism became the norm across the West as companies globalized, loosening their ties with local communities and national governments, and focusing instead on maximizing short-term profits for shareholders in competitive global markets. At the same time, labor unions, governments, and other civil society stakeholders lost a lot of their power and influence, further weakening the fabric in which a stakeholder model could prosper. It meant that even in those countries that did adhere to the stakeholder concept as a governance principle, other actors got weaker as companies, and specifically those who prospered in the third and fourth industrial revolutions, got stronger. The stakeholder model today, people and the planet. But see, here's the thing. Everyone can be a shareholder. Everyone has that capacity. It just takes a bit of effort and on ingenuity, and the government getting out of your way to allow you to do it. What's more a hindrance in your day-to-day life, everyone, in getting ahead? Is it the companies that are offering you cheap, effective services, free services in some regards, that you can have access to? Just think, all this Google rubbish with the Australian government. Imagine if the Australian government tried to run a search engine. Have you ever gone on the Australian, watch the politicians online? Have you ever gone there to try and watch something? I do it all the time when I want to get clips from parliaments. It's a complete joke. It is a complete and utter joke. So what's taken, there are two organizations here. One is seeking to force protection for an archaic institution, which is the traditional media, and takes money off us to force that to happen. And if we don't, they can use the threat of force against us and jail us. And there's another that's offering you free stuff so they can advertise to you that you can choose to not do business with. Sure, they're both evil, don't get me wrong. They both have biases and conflicts of interest. But which do you worry about more in the long term? Which is going to actually affect you more in the long term? Day to day. I know some people say Google this or that, but you can just turn them off. You can step away and not use it. Can you with the government in Australia? You can try. Good luck. Going rural. You can go full prepper. Kind of lonely. So, today the stakeholder concept is ready for a comeback, albeit in an updated, more comprehensive form. We are facing a whole set of social, economic, and health crises, and the best response to these challenges would be for all actors in society to consider more than their narrow and short-term self-interest. So, okay, here's the problem. Here is the problem. Now, with a globalist worldview, they don't realize, or they seem to ignore the fact that in multicultural societies, you're going to have cultural and religious and ethnic tribalism. So then when combined with people losing faith in institutions and our politicians not, apparently not even representing people's individual needs, or not even representing you. I mean, look at the cash ban. Look at how that was pushed forward. Sure, it failed due to a lot of public outcry, but it could have just quite easily have slipped through if it wasn't just someone overseas contacting someone at the Citizens Party and then it getting attention. Their public engagement was a couple hundred people around the country, and that was enough to make something we do illegal. Do you feel represented by your politicians? So here's the thing. Of course, people are going to be short-term and self-interest. That's never going to change. Is that even evolutionary? Is that possible to change? It has in some societies, hasn't it? But, how did they end up? This is the thing. Having a merit-based society with a free market gives greater opportunity for the greater amount of people. Having the government and institutions step away and allowing freedom and liberty, that's the best chance we have for a peaceful and prosperous tomorrow. This is very dangerous and quite scary. If you don't realize why, you need to just think about how it can be manipulated. That's the danger. So what could stakeholder capitalism look like today? And how does it differ from the stakeholder management my father's generation intuitively implemented in the 60s and 70s? The most important characteristic of the stakeholder model today is that the stakes of our system are now more clearly global. Economies, societies, and the environment are more closely linked to each other now than 50 years ago. The model we present here is therefore fundamentally global in nature, and the two primary stakeholders as well. This is true first and foremost for the planet's health. We now know is dependent not just on individual or national decisions, but on the sum of decisions made by actors from around the world. If we are to safeguard the planet for future generations, every stakeholder will therefore need to take responsibility for its part in it. It'll be fine. Calm down. From Malthus, we've been perpetuating concerns about, starvation, the end of the world. The thing is, young people aren't old enough to have lived through enough of these bullshit things where it's all coming to an end. Maybe that's just the normalcy bias, or maybe that's just experience. I was just reading now about hydrogen membrane technology developed by CSIRO, where they can extract, I want to do a video on it because I did a video about hydrogen production, and where they can extract hydrogen, pure hydrogen, from ammonia just by passing it through a metallic membrane. And that's got the chance to be revolutionary. Let me know in the comments if you know businesses that we can invest in to take advantage of that, or which Chinese or American businesses are going to take the technology from CSIRO. It's a sad reality. So, guys, if you can transport ammonia very safely, and you'll be filling up your car with ammonia and then extracting it in the vehicle, why not? Then you'll be, driving safely and cleanly. So it'll be fine. Guys, don't worry about it. Let the market sort it out. If there's a problem and you don't intervene in the market, it will find a solution, because people can make money of it, because people want to make money, because people are greedy. People have got their own self-interest at heart. People want to attract a mate. So that's why they work, everyone. Come on. This is nature here. They're going against nature. Sure, the problem is they're trying to implement tribalistic thinking. Okay, you want a collective? You at a smaller town, a smaller scale, maybe 100 people max. It gets any bigger than that, you're disenfranchised. You don't know any of the people. Cities are too big, so people just start focusing on their own, down to the family unit again. And that's why they want to destroy the family. So, what was once seen as externalities in national economic policy making and individual corporate decision-making will now need to be incorporated or internalized in the operations of every government, company, community, and individual. The planet is thus the center of the global economic system, and its health should be optimized in the decisions made by all other stakeholders. Yep, so we'll be taxed to the hill. Justifying introducing carbon tax. That's what I see there. The same interconnectedness can be observed for the people who live on the planet. The well-being of people in one society affects that of those in another, and is incumbent on all of us as global citizens to optimize the well-being of all. Failing to do so will inevitably come back to hurt us, to haunt us. Optimize the well-being of all. Good on it. He's written a book, and he's selling it for $40 a pop. But it will optimize for all. Life is getting better. The economy is getting better. Quality of life is getting better. Human development index is increasing. All of these things are getting better. You don't need to intervene. You need to get out of the way. This boomer level thinking that the world is going to hell in a handbasket is going to be usurped by left-leaning social justice and authoritarian groups, and it's going to be dangerous. Individual liberty is going to be destroyed through this. COVID-19 was just one reminder of the global interconnectedness and the fact that no one is safe and well until everyone is. When the SARS-CoV-2 virus spread around the planet, it devastated the livelihoods of hundreds of millions of people and led to death or severe illness for many millions. With the exception of a few island nations, no border closure was stringent enough to prevent the spread of the disease. The extensive spread of internet technology also makes people around the world more aware than ever of the fortunes of people elsewhere. Exactly, and how you frame that. If you focus on the good, it's not a bad thing. People got access to more education, more technology, more opportunities. This draws attention to global equity, making it an important objective, perhaps for the first time in history. Indeed, people are social animals, and their absolute well-being is less important than their relative well-being. Wherever you are in the world, there is thus an increasing consensus that the well-being of people wherever they live and the planet as a whole matter to all of us. These two elements are natural stakeholders, with people being simply all human individuals and the planet being the natural environment we all share. It leads to a new stakeholder model where those two are at the center. Okay. The key stakeholders and their objectives are profit, purpose, prosperity, and peace. Okay. To ensure that both people, it should be liberty here. It should be liberty and freedom. That's what it should be, because that leads to all of these other things. Has that been lost? Maybe he's never experienced it. To ensure that both people and the planet prosper, four key stakeholders play a crucial role. They are the government of countries, states, local communities, civil societies, from unions to NGOs, from schools and universities to action groups. There you go. Companies, constituting the private sector, whether freelance or large multinationals, and the international community, consisting of international organizations such as the UN, as well as regional organizations as the European Union or ASEAN. Well, how long will the European Union last? All these stakeholders crucially consist of people and make use of the planet. It is no surprise, then, that they should want to optimize the well-being of all of us. Optimize. The market optimizes. The free hand of the market does that. It's an emergent system. You're just going to stuff it up. You're just going to stuff it. You're going to create a system that leaves a legacy that can lead to fascistic control. But equally, it should be clear that they have specific objectives that make them distinct organisms in the first place. Governments focus on creating the greatest possible prosperity for the greatest number of people. Do they? Doesn't feel like it. No, it doesn't feel like it, does it? What do you think? Here in Australia, do you think our government is creating the greatest possible prosperity for the greatest number of people? See, here, this is the thing. This is the thing. I would argue that government's role should be to protect private property and individual liberty and step out of the way. See, I'd argue for a caretaker government, for a watchman government, something much smaller. But here, he's arguing for the greatest possible prosperity for the greatest number of people. Why? Why should the government do that? The only way the government can act is through forced redistribution of the means of production, not the means of production, of the wealth that you create. So, see, this is the problem. The axioms that Klaus is putting forward as the basis for his argument fundamentally don't align with people who advocate for individual freedom and liberty. I'm sure we can all agree on that. It seems evident in what he's putting through here. Civil society exists to advance the interests of its constituents and give a meaning or purpose to its members. Really? It's not the job of external organizations or societies to give you a purpose. That needs to be something that comes from oneself. Companies aim to generate an economic surplus measurable in profits in the short run and long-term value creation in the long run. Profits in short run, okay. And the overarching goal for the international community is to preserve peace. It leads to the stakeholder model, as we know it today, valid anywhere in the world where the well-being of people and planet are at the center of business. The four key remaining groups of stakeholders contribute to their betterment. As all of the groups and their goals are interconnected, one cannot succeed if the others fail. Yeah, but we need to step one further out. It's not people and planet. It's liberty and freedom. That leads to all of this. You're missing the point. Or the axioms that I would disagree with. The model is simple, but it immediately reveals why shareholder primacy and state capitalism lead to suboptimal outcomes. The focus on a more granular and exclusive objectives of profits or prosperity in a particular company or country rather than the well-being of all people and the planet as a whole. By contrast, in the stakeholder model, neither of the more granular objectives is set aside, but the interconnectivity and the overarching well-being of people and the planet are central, ensuring a more harmonious outcome over time. The problem is, to implement this, you need authoritarian control. You need to quash people that don't conform. You need to have government regulation, control, and limits on the freedom of business and the market. So there we have it, guys. If you want to read his book, it's available. I'll put a link to it on the on Amazon. So if you're going to buy it, you can support the channel. We'll have to have a look at it. But some of the axioms that he's putting forward, I don't agree with. And remember your homework, guys. If you haven't watched it, look at Hans Rosling's and Lomberg's talks on TED. I highly recommend them. Because the world isn't coming to an end, everyone. But this can lead to some unintended consequences. And, well, the global elite aren't going to suffer. It's going to be those of us, individuals, that want to have our freedom and liberty. And the danger is, those who want control and those special interest stakeholders are going to use this to their advantage. So it's all well and good talking about this and raising awareness. What can you do to address it? Well, I would suggest reaching out to your friends and family to make them aware of this so they can become more politically active, and find local politicians in your region or your nation that actually represent your interests and understand the inherent dangers of this type of ideological thinking. We had, I think, one nation put forward a motion against the Great Reset in Parliament. Just remember who didn't vote for it and who was against it. And all the green people who were dismissing it. For the greater good, everyone. Anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. Please like, share, subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links on Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. You can buy merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.